So for Daf Ches, we're on the second to last line on Zion Amud Beis. Ikeda Amri, Bakol Hunami Pligi. They're also arguing if there's machlokas if he says I'm being Makadishu with this silk or whatever for whatever it's worth. Rav Yosef Amar Shabbat Kesef Harioka Kesef Ma Kesef Dekates Af Shabbat Nami Dekates. Rav Yosef says you need to know the exact value. So when he's giving her some object that's of unknown value, these silks or cloth, whatever. When you give money, you know the denomination of the money, you know exactly what it's worth. So Shabbat Kesef also you have to know what it's worth. I'm Rav Yosef Na'amin. What's my source? How do I know this? Rav Yosef says the time we learned in the Brayso Mikesef Niknaso. Because of when Eved wants to buy out his remaining term, an Eved Ivri, he pays me kesef miknaso. So it shows that he had to be acquired with money and not with tuva v'kelim, not with something that you're not with produce or kelim, things that are only shava kesef. So hay tuva v'kelim hechidami. So what does it mean that he couldn't have been purchased with tuva and kelim to be an eved ivri? If you say that you can't use tuva and kesef for a kinyan for an eved at all, yashiv gulosam rachmanu rabo shava kesef kekesef. When he goes free and he pays money for to buy out his thing, to pay out the term of his avdos, it says yashiv gulaso. So the pasuk includes any that shava kesef is available for him to buy out his remaining term. My area to abakelim fil kesef nami. And if you're talking about a case that that mikesef miknaso, it has to be worth a shava pruta. Well, even if it's kesef itself that's not worth a pruta, he can't be sold or purchase with it. Elalav, the Isbu Shava Pruta became in Dulkaitzi low. So rather, it's something which is worth a pruta, but we don't know the exact value without it being appraised, so therefore it does not work. That's Rabbi Yosef's source. V'idach, the opinion argues with Rabbi Yosef and holds that Shava Kesef, even if we don't know the value of it, how does he learn these psukim? Hachikamar, B'toras Kesef Niknavenu Niknav B'toras Devova Kela. When it says Mikesef Hignaso that he's acquired with Kesef, it means he's acquired with the manner of acquisition of kesef, but not in the manner that you would acquire tvua or kalim, which umaynihu chalipin. That's just to show that he's not acquired with chalipin. According to Rav Nachman, if you want to do chalipin, you can give a keli to someone, but you can't give an apple, you can't give a fruit. So according to Rav Nachman, since peros are already excluded from chalipin, why do we need why do we need this drasha that kesef ein nikna b'tuva v'kelim? So I don't know why it says, well, tvua, just say kelim. The Rashi says, kol davar means you can't say tvua, Torah tvua v'kelim, which is chalipin. So so really the value of this movable property, this shava kesef with which you're acquiring him, is not worth the pruta. The mark my area to kelim I feel kesef nami. And when you say, well, if that doesn't work, kesef, if you're using actual coins, but they're not worth a pruta either, it's not worth a pruta. So how could you acquire with less than a shava pruta? Loma by kamer. It's telling us a loma by kesef the east shava pruta in ilolo. So it's doesn't need to be mentioned that kesef, if it's worth a pruta, you could use it. If it's not worth a pruta, you can't acquire him with it. But I might think that tvu and kalim, because he has instant gratification from being able to use it immediately, he will accept it as if it's worth a pruta. So kamash malan, that we do not say that, and it needs to have a pruta, even if he's willing to accept it because of his instant gratification, as if it's a pruta. I'm Rav Yosef. So we're about a third of the way down. The first word on line, I'm Rav Yosef. It's even with Tosvos Avol Kuliyama. I'm Rav Yosef, Namin Allah. So Rav Yosef gives another source. How do I know that? We have to know the exact amount for the Shava Kesef. It can't be something whose exact value isn't known. Namin Allah, Tanya, we learned in a Brayso. Egal Zelapidjon Beni, tell us Zelapidjon Beni, Lo Amar Klom. If I'm giving you this calf for pigeon aben, so it has to be worth 5 shekel. I'm giving you this talus for for Pidyon Ben for my son, Lo Amar Klom. He didn't say anything. The Kohen has not been able to reduce, did not receive this five shekel. So his son is not padoy, not redeemed. If he says this calf is worth 5 shekel for Pidyon Ben of my son, or this talus which is worth 5 shekel for the Pidyon Ben, then it's redeemed. So hi Pidyon hechidami. So what does it mean? What's the scenario here? If it's not worth it, how does it work at all? So the Reisha of that Tosefta, it says here's a calf, and it's for Pidyon Ben. So it must be that it is worth 5, but since he didn't tell the Kohen the value, it doesn't work. So that would be so his understanding, Rabbi Yosef's understanding of this Tosefta will show that when you give something, you have to say the value, and obviously you have to be accurate in it. So the Gemara rejects that understanding of Rabbi Yosef's understanding of the Gemara. Lo, Leolam de lo shavi. Really, this egel or this talus is not worth 5 shekels. We're going to keep a kohen iluya. But it would be a case where the kohen was willing to accept it as if it was worth that much. Rav Kahana shekel surshma be Pidyon Ben. Rav Kahana took a some type of cloth for Pidyon Ben. Amar le ledidi chazi li chamesh shleim, because he said for me it's worth 5 shekel. So the interpretation of that brisa is no, even if it's not worth 5 shekel, but if the Kohen for him it's worth 5 shekel, then the son or the person himself, if he was never padoy, is considered redeemed. Rav Ashi lo Amran el Kagon Rav Kana de Gavarabahu Miboyle Sudra Reisha. Rav Ashi says this halacha is only true for someone like Rav Kahana, who's a great man, and he needs that cloth on his head. Avakuli amalo, but other people no. Ki hadamar Rav Ashi's avin Sudra me'ima de Rabba Mikubi shavi yasor betlesa. Similar to the Mar Ravashi who bought a cloth from the mother of Rabbah from Kubi worth 10 for 13. So it seems that the idea of kippa, a yarmulke on your head, doesn't seem to be as widespread in those days. The Gavar Rabbah did not go publicly without a head covering. So Rav Kahana and Mar Ravashi were willing to overpay or to overvalue something which they were able to use as a head covering. 2 dots. Amar Velazar, he's actually been Madav Ladina, Harazim Kadeshas Vyashlam. If he says I'm a Kadeshu for a mana and he only gave her a partial payment, she's married, but he has to pay. He has to finish paying the full mana. My taima, what's the reason that it is Mikudeshes? Kavad Amarla Mana Vyavla Dinar, Command Amarla Amanas Dami. Since he told her a certain amount and he gave her something that was less, it's as if he says, you're Mikudeshes me on condition that I pay you the money. So he has to fulfill his condition. But Amrav Huna Amarav, Kala Amar Amanas, Amar Me'achshav Dami. And Rav Huna Amarav said, whoever says Amanas, it's as if you said Me'achshav. So this is an important principle. Sometimes when you make a condition, the Kiddushin or the transaction doesn't take place until the Kiddushin is the Tanai, the condition is fulfilled. But if you say Me'achshav, that adds an element of retroactivity. Meaning if I give you you are going to be married to me from this moment, if I give you whatever, I do 10 jumping jacks for you. And if you did 10 jumping jacks, a week later, so it retroactively makes you Mikudeshes. So that would mean that if in the meantime, from the time that you gave her the Kiddushin, but before you did the jumping jacks, if someone else would give her Kiddushin and she accepted it, those Kiddushin wouldn't be valid because once you did the jumping jacks and fulfilled the Tanai, retroactively she is married to you already. So if you say Almanas, it means Me'achshav. That once the Tanai is fulfilled, you retroactively from this moment married to me. Meisave, he's actually been Abraisa says that he says be mekanish me with a mana, and he was counting out the coins. And if one of them wanted to retract before he finished counting it out, even if he was on the last one, either of them have the permission to back out of the Kiddushin. So there, it's not almanas. So how come Rabbi Elazar said that it's as if you said on condition? Because the second case here, when they were counting, says, I'm going to be Mekadesh you with this, $300, whatever the mana is worth. So until he gives her the actual $300, because he said this $300, this mana, the Kiddushin isn't complete. So the Gemara says, Hamid Seifa b'manazu, Reisha b'manastam. But the Seifa is talking about this mana. So the Reisha must not be with this mana, it's just with the general mana. The Katani Seifa, because the continuation of the brisa that we just asked from was Amrla he's actually b'manazu, b'nimtza mana chaser dinar or dinar shanachoshes enim gudeshes. If he said be mekadesh with this mana and it was found that it was 10 cents short, or it was a copper dinar and not a silver one, she's not mekudeshes. Dinara harez mekudeshes v'yachlef. If it was a bad dinar, it was a bad coin, she is mekudeshes, but he has to exchange it for a good coin. So from the fact that the Seifa says manazu implies that the Reisha is not manazu. So that would not. So now we can't answer the inconsistency between Rabbi Lazar's statement and the Brisa. So Gemara says, "Lo Reisha was Seifa that manazu perusha kamefarish." Both the Reisha and the Seifa are when he was Mekadesh. He says, "I'm going to be Mekadesh with this mana." And then the Brisa is explaining itself. And if one of them wants to back out before, even if they're on the last one, when they're counting out the coins, they could back out. So what's an example? Could go into Amr b'manazu. Like he said, I want to be mekadesh with this mana. So until he actually gives her the mana, it's not final. And this makes sense. The because if the ratio was he just said with a mana, he didn't say with this mana, just a mana hashta, but mana stam will have a kiddushin, but mana zumibaya. If they're not mikudeshes, when he just says with a mana, if I say this mana and I don't produce this mana, certainly you're not mikudeshes. Imishum ha la ira tana seifa legally resha shalotama resha b'manazu b'mana stam have a kiddushin tana seifa b'manazu machal the resha b'mana stam but you'll have a kiddushin. So if it's from Manastam, it's not Kiddushin. So Imi Shumha, so Gemara says if it was for that reason, the Tana wouldn't say it in the Seifa to explain the Reisha. So you shouldn't say that Reisha is Manazu. But if it would have been B'Manastam, it was Kiddushin. Therefore, Tana B'Seifa B'Manazu. So he said in the Seifa Manazu, Machal the Reisha Manastam. Still, it's not Kiddushin. So that's the first answer. Rav Ashi Amar Mandu Halach Shani. Rav Ashi says no. The Rav Elazar's case is different than the brisa where he was counting it out, because when you're counting it out, that's different. The daita akula, because when you're counting it out, she's waiting to get the whole thing. If you would just if you would say money not count it out, she is accepting it as a down payment. So So when the brisa that we quoted, the second half, said it was a copper dinar, she's not Mekudeshes, what does it mean a copper? And what's it going to mean when it says a bad dinar? If she knew that there was copper dinarim in and they weren't all silver and she accepted it, why wouldn't it work? She accepted it. So so the reason is it was at night, or because there were a lot of zuz and she didn't notice it. So she didn't notice it's copper. Or it was at night, so she didn't know it's copper. But had she been able to see, but if it was in a regular daytime and he handed her in a way where she was able to see every coin and she accepted it anyway, it would be mikudeshes. Hi, second to last line. Hi dinara hechidami. What does it mean a bad dinar? If it's not the acceptable currency, then it's the same thing as a dinar shanachoshes. And it shouldn't be Mekudeshes. So Amar Papa so it's a case where it's used when you have a pressing need. So it's legal tender. People don't usually like to use it, but if they need to, someone will accept it, so it will be used. 2 dots less than Chasam Aleph. Amar Rava, Amar Rav Nachman. Amar Lahi Skash Liba Mana B'Niach Lamashkan Allah Ainam Mekudeshes. He says, please Haret Mekudeshes Li for $200, but he didn't have $200. He said, here's my watch as a collateral, and I'm giving you this collateral. Ain't Mekudeshes. Mana ain't kan mashkan ain't kan. She's not Mekudeshes because she didn't get the money and she doesn't have the mashka. Because she's not going to keep it. So, and she needs to receive something for the Kiddushin. Ace of A, Rav Nachman. Rav asked against Rav Nachman, Kitcha b'mashka mukudeshes, that there's a brisa that says if he married her with giving her a collateral, she is mukudeshes. So the answer is Hasan b'mashka da'chermik Rabbi Yitzchak. That's talking about not that it was he was leaving her collateral, but it's a case where he had given a loan to someone and he was collected collateral from that debt and he gave her that collateral. So he's like giving her the debt. So she is receiving something, even though she's not going to be able to keep the collateral, but he's transferring the whole debt to her. And according to the halach of Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yitzchak minayin l'balchov shekona mashko shenamar l'chotzi tzedaka imenu kona tzedaka minayin mikan balchov shekona mashko. So there's a pasuk that says that let's say if you got a pillow from a poor person or as a collateral on a loan, but you know that's his pillow, so you should return it to him at night. So the pasuk says when you return it to him, it's a tzedakah to you. So the question is, if you didn't acquire it, it's not tzedakah. It must only be tzedakah because it's yours and you're returning it for him to use. So therefore, Rav Yitzchak says that we learn that the Balchov acquires the collateral. Tosfos points out this is not talking about a collateral that you receive when at the time of the loan. It's only if, for whatever reason, you got a collateral after the loan was already dispersed. B'nei Rav Huna bar Avin Zavan hayi amsa b'priti. The sons of Rav Huna bar Avin sold a certain maidservant for pruto lahavi bedayu, but they didn't have, or they bought her, but they didn't have the money to pay. Osvei nischala, so they gave bullion. They had a chunk of silver, but it wasn't a coin. L'sof aiker amsa. Then the maidservant became more valuable. Also commander of Ami. So they said to Rami, he said, what's the status? Amar le priti inkan naska inkan. There's no pruta and there's no bullion. You didn't pay, and the nascha that you gave was not for the purchase, so the sale never took place. Tana Rabbana. So this is about 10 lines down from the top of Chesam Beis. The last word on the line is the abbreviation Tana Rabbana. Iskachli b'mana. If he said you will be mikudeshes to me with 200, bucks or whatever. Now Lazovsky she took it and threw it straight into the sea, or to a fire, anything that will destroy it. She's not Mekudeshes. Hashadin Tsukame have a Kiddushin. So the implication is, if she threw it in a place where it would get destroyed or lost forever because it's in the sea, then they're not Kiddushin. But if she would just throw it in front of him, it would be Kiddushin. Ha'akamrle shakel lo ba'inan. But if she said just take it, we wouldn't know. So the Gemara says lomi bay kamar. It's again similar to what we saw in Amar Aleph. Not just this case doesn't work, but also that case doesn't work. Amar lomi bay shadin so kamei do have a kiddushin. We don't need to say that if she would throw it in front of him, showing that she does not want it, it's not kiddushin. You might think if she throws it away and destroys it, she's ruining his money, so she has to make restitution. So since she's going to be liable for it, it does work as Kiddushin. And the reason that she threw it into the sea or into the fire was, when it says fire, I don't know if it means stam fire or like a blacksmith's fire that would melt it, but she wants to know, does he get angry easily? So if she would throw it and destroy it, if he gets real mad, then she's not going to want to be, she's just testing him to see what kind of personality he has. Kamash Malan, that no, she's not testing him, she's rejecting the money, and she's not Mekudeshes to him if she throws it away. He said, be Mekudeshes to me with the mana, and she said, give him to my father or to your father. So the question is, but if she said to him, give them to my father or your father on condition that they accept it on my behalf, then she is Mekudeshes. So Tana Abalo Diacha Koch the Reisha. So how come it says my father or your father? So my father means the Kala's father, your father means the Chassan's father. So it mentions both the father to tell us the Koch of the Reisha. Even when it's her father, she's not telling it to the man that she wants her father to accept on her Kiddushin. Still, it's not Mekudeshes. And Tanavicha L'diacha Koch to Seifa. And it says your father to tell us the strength of the Seifa, that if he said, she said, give it to your father to accept it, that he's accepting it on my behalf. That works, even though she's not related to him yet, because it's going to be her father-in-law, not her own father. But still, if she says to accept it on my behalf, then it is mukadeshes. Second wide line, he's gachli b'mana tnam leploni and mukadeshes. If he says you'll be mukadeshes to me with this money, she says give it to so and so and mukadeshes. Amanashe yikabel li mukadeshes. But if she told the man, give it to so and so for him to accept it on my behalf, then she is mukadeshes. So that's very similar to the case of Abba Vavicha. So why do we need both cases? Gemara says tricha. We need both cases. The Iyashmina and Abba Vavicha hasam hu dechiyamra amanashe kabel li have a Kiddushin to some kadaito lahu. Because when she says your father, my father, there is some type of relationship, whether it's about to be father-in-law or not. So therefore, she relies on their accepting it, and she makes it as if they're a shliach on her behalf. Of a ploni law, but stam a person, no. V'yeshmin and ploni hachahu dechiyamar tanam leploni lava kiddushin lo mekaver daita legabe lemeisule b'matana. Avalaba v'yichad mekaver daita legabayhu ema b'matana yavinu nehaiko tzricha. And if it just said a stam person, if we would have only had the case where she said, give it to a stam person, only for a stam person, ploni, there's not Kiddushin because they don't have a relationship that she would give a gift to him. But Abba Vavicha, that there's a relationship between them, and maybe she might be giving them to Matana. So we need the case that even for Abba Vavicha, unless she says that you're giving it to them on condition that they're accepting it on my behalf, she's Mekudeshes. And if she doesn't say on the condition that they're accepting on my behalf, she's not Mekudeshes. Tanar Rabbanan. He's got to leave a mana Tanama Gabi Sala in Mekudeshes. If he said, be Mekadesh, you'll be Mekudeshes to me with this money, she said, put him on a rack, she's not Mekudeshes. If it was her rack, they are Mekudeshes. So Rashi seems to say that it works like Kinyan Chatzar. Tosfos asked that it doesn't make sense. Mela get, if it's her chatzir could acquire because you don't need to actually. She doesn't have to accept it voluntarily. It just has to reach her hands. But Kiddushin has to be accepted voluntarily. So Tosfos says that it can't work midin kinyan chatzir. And you could say that Rashi doesn't reject Tosfos. So it could be that it's meaning she's saying put them in this particular place, and if the particular place is hers, then she is mekudeshes. Bayra bebo selashel shnei amahu teku. If this rack belonged to the man and the woman, is it considered hers enough that the Kiddushin takes effect or not? Teku. We don't have an answer. Hiskachli b'kikar. If he says here's a loaf of bread, it's artisan, it's worth a lot. Hiskachli, and she says tno lakalav inu kedeshes. If she says, give it to this dog, she's not Mekudeshes. But if it was her dog, Mekudeshes because she's saving money on dog food. Bayra Mari, Keratra Ratzach Hareha Mahu, Behuana de Kamatsa Nafshe, Mine Gamra Mekanile Nafsha, Odilma Matzi Amar Lamidraisa Chayuv Mecheves Letzlinon Teku. So if a dog was running after her, what's the din? So he says, be Mekudeshes to me and I'll give this to the dog so the dog won't attack you. Doesn't not work for Kiddushin since that's for the halach of Rode if he has to save her. So that's actually the second side. So the first thing was with the Hana that she's being saved. Is she accepting it and accepting his proposal of marriage? Or she could say, Midiraisa, you have to save me because even if you don't want to be Mukadeshes to me, because that's the din of saving someone. Teku. So we don't have an answer. I don't remember the details, but they're J. David Bleich in a Beis Yitzchak, the YU Torah journal from like Tavshin Samach Vav or something, had a piece about and it mentions that since according to opinions, a person would have to pay back the money if you saved someone from a rodef for whatever, you would have to pay them back. He talked about could you use that person's belongings to save them? I don't remember the details, but it was quoted by someone else, halach l'maisa, a little bit. So that's something to keep in mind. It's not directly related to the daf, but the fact of the obligation and the if you would owe money for the person spending money to save you from dangerous situation. So we'll end there 3 lines from the bottom on Chesamid base.